Morning in downtown Chicago. The air is crisp and clean, blending the city's hustle with the solemnity of towering glass buildings. Bennett Financial Bank stands tall amidst the bustling street, symbolizing stability, success, and, according to many, a place beyond reproach in professionalism. Yet beneath the polished facade, the most silent and chilling truths often lurk. Marcus Bennett enters, not with the aura of a powerful CEO, but as an ordinary black man, or at least that's the impression he intends to give. Dressed in a light blue shirt, khaki pants, and pristine white sneakers, he blends seamlessly into the crowd. Unbeknownst to the bank's staff, this man is the very architect of the empire they work in, built from the ground up. Today, Marcus isn't here as the boss. No meetings, no media, no multi-million-dollar figures. Just a personal transaction. Withdrawing $15,000, 0 cents. A seemingly straightforward task any client should complete swiftly and without suspicion. Binghamton University catalog. But before he approaches the counter, his sharp eyes catch a scene that makes him pause. A middle-aged white man, clad in an elegant gray coat, has just withdrawn $20,000, 0 cents in cash. No excessive paperwork, no scrutinizing glances, no questions. The teller beams, counts the money effortlessly, and nods respectfully as he departs. Maura stands still for a moment. His jaw tightens, as if swallowing an ice cube. A familiar feeling resurfaces. One that had seeped into his bones years ago, but he had overcome it, risen above it. He had vowed never to let this place, the very bank he established, fall into that same trap. He proceeds to the teller. It's his turn. The woman before him wears a navy blazer, her blonde hair neatly tied. A small nameplate reads, Amy Carter. Unlike the previous customer, there's no smile, no greeting, no eye contact. Amy coldly slides a form toward him, her voice devoid of emotion. Fill this out. No explanation, no questions, no eye contact, length. In +6 Victoria Sanders, +6 literary agencies, +6 Publishers Marketplace, +1 Victoria Sanders, +1. Marcus gazes at her a second longer than necessary, as if contemplating something. Then he nods slightly, retrieves a pen from his shirt pocket, and fills out the withdrawal form. He remains silent, not out of fear but observation. Every glance, every gesture, every subtlety in how they distinguish between preferred clients and those deemed untrustworthy. Have you ever felt judged solely by your appearance? Have you witnessed someone being treated unfairly in a supposedly professional setting? Share your thoughts below. These seemingly minor incidents shouldn't be overlooked, especially in places we consider most trustworthy. And the ironic twist, Amy, and the security team she's about to summon, have no idea that the man they're preparing to escort out is the very individual who could dismantle the entire system with a single call. Marcus slides the completed form and his driver's license toward the teller. Nothing unusual about the procedure. But the peculiarity lies in her demeanor. She glances at the form, notes the amount, and immediately pushes it back, as if it's contaminated. We don't process this kind of transaction, she states curtly, her tone blunt and unapologetic. Marcus furrows his brow, his hand lightly touching the returned form. Excuse me? Amy remains unflinching. We don't handle large cash withdrawals like that. Historical Novel Society, +2. Binghamton University Catalog, +2. Everett Naval Life, PSW. Marcus locks eyes with her, his voice calm yet firm. I just witnessed that gentleman leave with $20,000, 0 cents in his pocket without any issue. He subtly points toward the door, The same one the white customer exited moments ago, stepping into the sunlight without a single question or suspicious glance. Amy bites her lower lip, her face tense as if restraining herself. That's it. It's different. Just 3 words, but they carry significant weight. Marcus leans in slightly, his gaze unwavering. Different how, for the first time since his arrival, Amy averts her eyes, not out of shame but awaiting instructions. Her glance shifts swiftly to the glass-walled office at the bank's rear. There stands Victoria Sanders, the branch manager, in a meticulously tailored suit, arms crossed, observing from afar with a cold, commanding stare. She says nothing, yet her gaze issues orders. Marcus turns to follow Amy's line of sight. He immediately grasps the situation. He's encountered that look countless times, a gaze that determines winners and losers before the game even begins. As their eyes meet, Victoria offers a subtle nod, so slight that most would miss it. But for Amy, it's the green light to proceed. Her back straightened, her chin lifted higher. When she turned to face Marcus again, her eyes no longer held caution, but cold, smug confidence. "I already told you," she said, tapping her finger lightly on the withdrawal slip between them like a flag planted in victory. "We can't process this transaction." Marcus took a deep breath. His eyes remained calm, but his breathing had grown heavier. "And I'm asking why?" Amy didn't respond right away. Instead, she tapped her nails rhythmically on the counter. Click, click, like a countdown. She wasn't searching for a reason, she was crafting a lie. Finally, she looked up and offered a pale smile, sweetened just enough to sting. "It's simple. This transaction is unusual. Withdrawing that much cash, it's usually suspicious." A heavy silence dropped between them. The word suspicious hovered in the air like an accusation without evidence. Marcus swallowed that familiar taste, rejection dressed in civility. He knew this game. He had lived it, walked through the shadowy lanes of unspoken rules, places where trust was handed out instantly, but only to those with the right face. When he withdrew the same amount, you didn't find that suspicious? Marcus didn't need to raise his voice, didn't need to point. The truth was obvious, and that's what unsettled Amy the most. You, the one following this story, what do you think when the same action leads to different outcomes? Based on skin color, clothing, or how someone looks? What would you do if you were Marcus, knowing you're right, yet being misjudged the moment you walked in? Share your thoughts, because what's unfolding here isn't just fiction. It reflects what many have lived, endured, and stayed silent about. Marcus didn't name names. He didn't have to. Amy knew exactly who he was referring to and what he meant. "Then tell me, Amy," his voice gentle as wind but heavy with weight, "what's the difference?" For just a moment her eyes wavered. A flicker, quick, almost invisible, then buried again under her usual frost. "Ah, don't make the rules," she said, her answer like a flimsy shield, thin, vague, and weak. Marcus chuckled without a trace of amusement. "Don't make the rules," he repeated, "but you sure know when to apply them and to whom." That sentence landed like a slap. No yelling, no anger, just truth. Amy stood straighter, shoulders tense, her lips pressing into a tight, sharp line. "I need to call the manager," she cut him off, turning on her heel. Her heels clicked quickly across the tile floor. No permission asked, no reaction awaited. Marcus stayed still. His fingers tapped the counter, steady, in rhythm with his own heartbeat. A silent act of control amidst the churning tide beneath the surface. The atmosphere in the bank shifted, not with noise or movement, but with energy. With an odd, uneasy stillness, everything slowed down. A few employees glanced his way, then quickly looked away. A few customers fidgeted, sensing something was off but not wanting to get involved. A few feet away, a white woman in her 50s stood still, silver hair peeking beneath a soft hat. Marcus caught the name on her handbag, Lisa Parker. She looked at him, her eyes uncertain, caught between saying something or staying silent like always. Marcus met her gaze, and with just a glance she smiled, an unsure, hesitant smile. He didn't return it, not because she was the enemy, but because he knew her type too well. They see, they whisper, they sense injustice, but they never speak up. The glass door at the back of the bank opened. Victoria Sanders, the branch manager, emerged with a commanding walk and an expression carved from stone. Each step echoed like a blade on marble. Behind her followed Amy, chin high, a faint smirk tugging at her lips, the pride of someone who knows they've got backup. Victoria stopped at the counter, adjusted her blazer, her eyes sharp as lasers scanning Marcus's face. "Good morning, sir," she said in a practiced, professional tone, one honed for handling difficult customers. "I understand you're trying to make a large withdrawal." Marcus didn't blink. "That's correct." She nodded, smiled, a perfectly polished smile that somehow made it even harder to believe. "Fortunately, we have certain security protocols we must follow for cash withdrawals of this size." Marcus tilted his head slightly, his gaze unchanging. "Security procedures? For the safety of our customers and staff," Victoria said evenly, "we have to be more cautious with high-value transactions." Marcus folded his arms, shifting his weight to one side. His posture changed, no longer that of someone requesting a favor, but of someone waiting for the right answer. "Cautious? How, in my case?" Victoria tilted her head, her eyes still holding that carefully constructed faux empathy. "It means we need to verify a few additional details," she said, her tone outwardly pleasant, but layered with a quiet condescension. Marcus exhaled softly through his nose, not to stay calm, but to stay grounded in a game that was rigged from the start. "You mean verify my information?" He paused, eyes sharp as blades. "Because clearly when the man before me withdrew an even larger amount, no verification was required." Victoria's smile didn't fade, but her jaw tensed, a small, unmistakable sign of irritation. She wasn't used to being challenged, especially not by someone who didn't fit the profile of a customer she instinctively respected. Victoria Sanders raised an eyebrow, her voice sharpening. "I can't comment on other customers' transactions, but in this case I need to verify the origin of the funds as well as your most recent deposit." Marcus felt his patience wearing thin, like stone ground down by wind. He pointed at the computer in front of her. "My account is right there in front of you. Everything you need is on that screen. All you have to do is look." Victoria's expression hardened. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried the familiar weight of a lifetime issuing commands. "I need your cooperation, Mr. Bennett." Marcus gave a short, humorless laugh. "Cooperation?" He shook his head. "I'm providing all the information. I'm here in person with every necessary document. Yet you're still looking for reasons to deny me. This isn't protocol, it's prejudice." The word prejudice hit like a hammer, silencing the room. He saw it in Victoria's flickering eyes, in Amy's startled flinch behind her. The whole bank seemed to hold its breath. Victoria opened her mouth, then closed it. Her eyes narrowed as she raised her hand, a small but clear gesture. Across the room, someone moved. Ethan Reynolds, The security officer, a large white man in his 30s with broad shoulders and a thick neck, stood by the entrance. He rose, his eyes briefly meeting Victoria's before locking onto Marcus. Without a word, without hesitation, he walked toward the counter. Marcus didn't move. He was used to this, used to the slow, heavy footsteps echoing like a warning, "You don't belong here." Ethan didn't need to shout. He didn't need to flaunt authority. His mere presence was intimidation enough. A body weaponized by a system that had never questioned his right to enforce control. Victoria didn't look at him. She didn't have to. A single gesture was enough. She kept her eyes on Marcus, watching, not for an answer, but for submission. And that's what they always waited for. Marcus inhaled deeply. Inside him something hot stirred. Not the rage of the moment, but a deep, familiar burn. The exhaustion of decades navigating unwritten rule. He wasn't afraid. He'd lived too long for fear. But he was tired. Tired of having to prove his worth in rooms he had paid to build. "I'll ask again." Victoria's voice remained soft, still laced with that carefully curated tone of graceful conflict resolution. "Can you confirm the source of this money?" Marcus clenched his jaw slightly, keeping his voice cold and steady. "My salary, same as every other deposit I've made into this account." Victoria tilted her head, signaling to Amy, who stood frozen behind her, arms crossed like a makeshift shield. "Then can you state the exact amount of your most recent deposit?" Marcus was silent for a breath. He could, but that wasn't the point. The point was that he was being asked to, when the man before him had not. No one said a word, but everyone was listening. The bank employees were glued to their computer screens, but their eyes kept darting toward the counter. Lisa Parker, the older woman he had noticed earlier, shifted slightly. She gripped her handbag tighter. A small gesture, but a telling one. Marcus knew it well. Signs of discomfort, and worse, recognition without courage. The look of someone who knows, but won't speak. Lisa Parker wanted to say something. Marcus saw it in the way she shifted slightly, her lips parting, then closing again. 1 second of courage, strangled by 2 words, "Not my business." Marcus ran a hand over his face, trying to hold back the rising tide of emotion. He looked at the withdrawal form still on the counter, then up at Victoria. His voice was soft, but sharp like glass under a blade. "My account, my information is right in front of you. Why not just look it up?" Victoria didn't move. Not a single muscle on her face changed. "We don't operate that way here." Marcus let out a dry, humorless laugh. "Interesting," he said. "I've been banking here for years. Never once have I been asked questions like these. Never once have I been treated like I'm a threat." He stepped closer to the counter, his voice cut sharper now. "Who tell me, Victoria? What is it about me that makes you think I don't belong here?" Silence fell like a heavy velvet curtain. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. Amy glanced at Victoria, her eyes dimmed slightly. Even she now sensed that the situation had crossed a line, from policy to prejudice. But Victoria didn't back down. Instead, her lips curled slightly in a smile, the kind of smile worn by someone convinced they still hold all the power. She cast a quick glance behind Marcus, a brief flick of the eyes, but heavy with implication. Ethan Reynolds was already standing behind him. Marcus didn't need to turn around to feel his presence. The heavy breathing, the looming figure, a shadow hovering just at the edge of his vision. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave," Ethan said in a flat, detached voice, like someone asking for silence in a library. As if Marcus wasn't a customer, as if he were a disturbance. Marcus slowly turned his head, locking eyes with Ethan, not with rage but with scrutiny, searching for something, a hint of doubt, a flicker of hesitation. But there was nothing, just emptiness and orders to follow. He knew Ethan wasn't making decisions. Victoria pulled the strings. Amy enabled them, the whole system, from the glances to the procedures, had made its call the moment Marcus walked through the door. You don't belong. Everything else was just theater, to legitimize a bias. Marcus took a deep breath. He had played this game too many times. His hand moved slowly into his pocket, every motion deliberate, visible, careful not to be misunderstood. He pulled out his phone, unlocked it with a touch, and lifted it, pressing record. His voice rang out, clear, calm, and cutting, each word hitting the floor like a nail. You are refusing to process my withdrawal request. He turned the phone toward the counter. Even though I've provided full ID, account details, and even though just before me a white customer withdrew a larger amount without a single question. Amy held her breath. Victoria clenched her jaw. Ethan stood still, his shoulders stiff, eyes flickering. This time, Ethan's voice slowed, a note of hesitation creeping in. I'm asking you to leave one more time. Marcus tightened his grip on the phone, eyes never leaving Ethan's. And what if I don't? Without pause, Ethan reached out. His large hand grabbed Marcus's arm, not violently, but firm enough to deliver the message. This is no longer a request. Before Marcus could brace himself, he was yanked backward, as if some invisible wire had snapped mid-step. His shoulders slammed into Ethan's chest, a solid wall of muscle. Before he could regain his balance, he was spun around and pushed toward the main doors. The force wasn't enough to injure, but just enough to unbalance. A sharp breath rose from a customer nearby. Someone whispered, "What the hell's going on?" But, as always, no one stepped out from behind their silence. Marcus's heel slipped on the tile floor, scrambling for traction. Then came a harder shove, sending him stumbling into the glass doors. Thud. His back slammed into the glass, pain shooting up his spine. But he didn't wince, didn't groan, didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing him hurt. The thing they secretly longed for, from men like him. The doors flew open from the impact, and just like that, Marcus Bennett, the founder of the bank, was shoved into the street like a petty troublemaker. The morning air hit like a slap, cold, indifferent. Behind him, Ethan stood framed in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes blank, no apology, no regret. And then came the final blow. Marcus's ID card, the one they refused to even look at, flew from someone's hand and landed on the pavement like trash. But a small sound, but to Marcus it cracked like a gunshot inside his chest. Something ignited in him, blazing, fierce, wild, the kind of feeling balanced precariously between restrained rage and an oncoming storm. He was about to reach down and pick up his dignity, but before he could, another shadow stepped in. Jamal Brooks, a fellow security guard, black, early 30s, walked up. No one called him, he just appeared. Jamal's face was quiet, but his eyes told another story, a story of exhaustion, not of the body, but of a spirit worn down by too many years of silent endurance. He knelt, picked up the ID and gently brushed off the dirt, as if wiping clean something sacred. He handed it to Marcus with both hands, as if returning a truth that had been buried. "This place," Jamal said softly, just enough for Marcus to hear, "has always been like this." Their fingers touched briefly as Marcus accepted the card, a fleeting contact, but it carried the weight of hundreds of years of injustice. Jamal shook his head and sighed. You've got the degree, the experience, you do everything right, but it doesn't change anything. His voice wasn't bitter, just honest, raw, and weary. They don't want us in the offices, not in leadership. They just want us cleaning, guarding doors, padding their diversity stats. That's it. Jamal's eyes flicked toward Ethan, holding a quiet contempt like one would have for someone unaware they're just a cog in the machine. This, Jamal lowered his voice so only Marcus could hear, ain't anything new. Marcus stood still for a long moment. His heart thudded in his chest. His mind raced, but his hand moved once more to his pocket. This time he didn't press record. He made a call. The screen lit up. It rang. Once, twice. David Carter, came the crisp voice on the other end. Marcus gripped the phone tightly. I need you at the Chicago branch, immediately. There was no immediate reply, just silence, tight as a drawn bowstring. Then a single breath, firm, decisive. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Marcus hung up. He said nothing. He slid the phone back into his pocket, the other hand gripping the ID tightly, its rigid corners pressing into his palm, reminding him that he was still here, still himself, still Marcus Bennett, and that the fire rising within him couldn't explode, not yet. He looked to Jamal, who still stood beside him, an unwilling witness to a public humiliation. Jamal's arms were folded across his chest, eyes shifting from Marcus to the glass doors, where Ethan stood like a gatekeeper. No thoughts, only orders. Jamal exhaled, releasing a wry chuckle. Well, he muttered, shaking his head, this is about to get interesting. Marcus didn't respond. He didn't have to. This wasn't the time for words, it was time for the truth to walk in. Those 15 minutes dragged on like a long, gray afternoon. Inside the bank, life went on as if nothing had happened. Victoria had returned to the counter, speaking to Amy in the language of people convinced they'll never sit in the defendant's chair. Her gestures remained sharp, efficient, and cold, as though she hadn't just pushed someone out the door. Ethan remained at his post, glancing at Marcus, then quickly away, as if he were just a minor blemish on an otherwise spotless day. Lisa Parker had vanished, likely thinking it easier to remove herself from the awkwardness. Marcus wasn't surprised. They often did. Then a sleek black car glided to the curb. Before it even came to a full stop, the door swung open, a man stepped out, each step striking the sidewalk with purpose. David Carter. Salt and pepper hair, tailored black suit, eyes like tempered steel. No need to announce his authority, he was authority. When his eyes met Marcus's, his expression tightened. Just for a second, subtle but unmistakable, he walked forward, not glancing at Ethan, not slowing down, as if the guard didn't even exist. The glass doors opened again, this time not to eject but to deliver justice. Marcus followed behind, his steps slow, deliberate, each one heavy with meaning. The injustice hadn't faded, but something else had sparked inside him now, a shift in power. Jamal hesitated for only a second, then stepped in too, as a witness who had long stood on the sidelines, now choosing to step into the center. Victoria turned just a second too late and met David's eyes. In hers, recognition began to surface, along with a flicker of confusion. She adjusted her blazer instinctively, trying to salvage the image of someone still in control. Amy stood behind her, stiff as a tightened violin string. Mr. Carter, Victoria began, voice struggling for composure. "I wasn't informed." David didn't let her finish. "If you had been informed," he said coldly, firmly, "this wouldn't have happened." His words sliced through the air like a blade. Victoria's lips pressed together, opened, then closed again as she searched for a response. A moment of visible uncertainty cracked through her otherwise prideful demeanor before it was masked again by practiced defensiveness. "Sir, I believe there's been a misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding," David replied curtly. He stepped forward, his voice low but sharp as a razor. "The only thing that truly confuses me," he said, glancing briefly at Marcus before locking eyes with Victoria again, "is why the CEO of this bank was just thrown out of the very institution he built." Silence fell like a guillotine. Amy turned pale. Ethan stood frozen. The other employees, those who had pretended to be busy, stopped typing altogether. Victoria blinked. Once, then again. The calm mask she wore began to crack. Her mouth opened, but a beat too late. "Don't," David interrupted. His voice was now cold steel. He turned to Amy. "You refused his transaction, didn't you?" Amy swallowed hard. I was just following procedure." "Procedure?" David repeated the word like it was an accusation. He let the silence hang, a vice grip tightening on everyone in the room. "So that's what we're calling blatant racism now? Procedure?" Amy opened her mouth. No sound came out. David turned back to Victoria, eyes cold. "Tell me, Victoria, before you made the decision to deny his request, did you check his account?" Victoria inhaled sharply. Sir, Yes or no?" David's voice was low, but it cut like a scalpel. Victoria hesitated, just one breath. But it was enough. David stood still for a beat, then turned slowly. He looked at each of them, Amy, Ethan, the staff hunched over their keyboards. No one spoke. No one met his eyes. Then he spoke, with the certainty of a judge delivering a verdict. "You're terminated, effective immediately." Victoria went rigid. "Sir, that's extreme." David cut her off again, unmoved. "And if I discover any similar behavior toward any client from any employee in this system," his eyes swept toward Ethan, "it won't just be your job." He paused, letting the warning hang like a blade overhead. "You'll be held accountable in court." Ethan lowered his head. For the first time that morning, he didn't dare hold eye contact. Victoria flushed. No more icy composure. Just a woman being pulled from the throne she had built for herself. "Extreme?" Marcus finally spoke, his voice thick with restrained fury. "You threw me out like a criminal. You didn't check my ID, didn't look at my account. You knew what you were doing." Victoria stepped back. Her face tightened as if struck. David turned to Marcus, and for the first time in this confrontation, his gaze softened. No apology could undo what had just occurred, but his eyes said what words could not. "I see you, and I won't let this be ignored." He gave a slow, firm nod. Then he turned to Jamal, the only one who had acted, not out of position, but out of principle. "And what about you?" David asked, his voice now gentler, but still weighty. Jamal froze. His body tensed, unsure he'd heard correctly. David studied him for a moment, then gave a small nod. "You're being promoted, effective today." Jamal's eyes widened. The shoulders that had carried years of quiet service finally dropped, as if shedding an old suit of armor. You deserve more than this, David said softly, without embellishment. Just a simple truth. And you shouldn't be working under people like that. He turned back to Marcus. This time, his voice held a different tone. Closer, warmer. No longer speaking as a corporate representative, but as a friend standing beside someone who had just endured public humiliation. Marcus, he asked, would you like to clean house at this branch? Marcus nodded, without hesitation, without explanation, just the response of a man who had endured enough. David understood. No more words were needed. He turned to face the others, Victoria, Amy, Ethan, and the entire team who had remained silent the whole time. Everyone involved in today's incident, he said clearly, will undergo mandatory training on bias and discrimination. He paused, his eyes flicking toward Ethan, a silent warning, including the security department. The words landed like the final nail in the coffin of complacency. No one objected, no one dared. Victoria opened her mouth again, but nothing came out. Every word was strangled by the weight of truth. Marcus stepped forward to the counter, without a word to her, just deliberate action. Amy stepped aside, quickly, without needing to be told. David pointed toward the computer. Process his withdrawal now. No one dared breathe too loudly. The stacks of cash were counted carefully, placed neatly on the counter. His money, no permission needed, no justification required. Just his right. Marcus took it, then looked at Jamal, who still seemed caught in a dream. He slid one stack toward him. Jamal frowned. Marcus held his gaze. Take the day off. A slow beat. Then Jamal raised his hand, cautiously, accepting, not out of greed, but because it meant something. Marcus turned, meeting Victoria's eyes for the first time since he entered. It's very nice. You should have looked at my ID. Just one sentence, but it sealed the verdict. He turned and walked out of the bank. No one stopped him. No one dared. This time he didn't leave because he was forced to. He left because he chose to. If you found this story thought-provoking, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to join us in exploring stories that matter. Stories with heart, with impact, and with meaning. Tap the notification bell so each morning starts with a lesson, an emotion, a voice for justice,